Okay, welcome everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers, and welcome to Creative Conversations, which is a special episode of Creative Happy Hour where we speak with a creative from our community about a different subject each time. Today we have an author with us, and Diana Kelly.
Thank you.
Who is the author of The Sky Turned Green and the Grass Turned Blue. Show us your fabulous book in the camera.
There it is.
Perfect. There it is, and we will show you guys.
The green sky and the blue grass.
Exactly. We will give you guys all of the details for this fabulous book. It is a fascinating book about. Tell us briefly what the book is about.
A synopsis.
Before we start. Well, actually, let's first say what we're drinking, because we're drinking the Butterfly.
Yes.
And the Butterfly, say it matches the book. It's all about transformation. It is a cocktail made out of vodka, grapes, muddled basil and mint leaves, and Saint-Germain.
Yes.
Yes. And we'll give you the recipe.
Butterfly nectar.
It's like butterfly nectar. We're going to taste it. And then we're going to give you the recipe on our Instagram account and on the show notes. So let's taste it. Cheers again. Let's try it out. Well, that's pretty nice. That'll make you change.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
It's like
that packs a punch. Yes.
it's warming. It certainly does. I'm like, okay.
So now tell us about your book. I know that you're well versed in this because you do have a lot of talks at all the bookstores around and everything else, which is very exciting. So,
well, the sky turned green, the grass turned blue is Diane's story. It's my personal journey as a significant other to a male to female transsexual. And I wrote about my experience with Jay, who transitioned in the late 1990s when very little was known about what it meant to be a transgender, let alone what transsexuality was about.
Yeah, it's hard for us to imagine that now because there's so much more that we know and so much more in the news. But this was very novel for you, yeah.
It was so unknown that that sent me on my own journey, and that's what I write about, is what I did to try to understand. And I had been with Jay for 7 years at the time that he came out to me that he wanted to transition to become female. And because I didn't know anything about it, it sent me off on my own journey to learn whether or not I should stay or go.
That's incredible. And so the book is a real page turner.
It is a page turner.
It is a personal journey, and it's so unique because it's something, I mean, the way that you present this is just so deep, full of personal experiences. But what interests me a lot as a Creative Happy Hour co-host is how did your experience turn into the desire to write a book? Was that part of the journey?
It was part of the journey for me. Into the journey, I discovered that there was so much that wasn't known, and I felt so alone in the process of trying to understand that I decided that if I was to write, maybe I could help someone else. And that was really what prompted me to write.
Wow.
Because I just felt like there was too little known about it, and the process of it, it takes a lot of courage for someone to come out, first of all, to their loved ones, and then also to actually make the transition.
Right.
But I decided it was worth writing about so that others would not have to go through some of the pain that I had to go through and learning what it was all about.
Well, and also I think it takes a lot of courage to kind of go through that journey also as not the person who's transitioning, but the person who's trying to understand and help and to possibly stay in the relationship or not, which
definitely.
we will not tell our listeners which one happens. But I mean, you did go through the whole depth of the journey, very much so. So for you, can you tell us about some of the, without revealing too much, some of the seminal moments in the book, some scenes or some experiences that were really major, that were transformative?
I think that as the book progresses, you learn that, first of all, it's very difficult for a person to come out to their loved ones about the desire that they have. And that prevents many transgender people from really explaining to their loved ones what it is that they really want. So as with Jay, with Jack, who becomes Jocelyn in the book, transitions, Jay wasn't really forthcoming to me in the beginning as far as like what the real desire was. Right. And so what that did was it took me into the world of BDSM because Jay basically first says I am submissive and that's what's going on with me right now.
Right. Which is not completely accurate, but that's a rabbit hole that you went down. Yes.
Exactly. Because it was a way for Jay to actually dress as a female and then also use that as a stage in which to practice being female. Out in the world, and find that acceptance. So that's one journey that happens, and then I also develop a relationship with a woman in the book because I was very concerned with what was going to happen if I am then considered to be a lesbian.
Right.
Because
that's a whole other identity. So a change of identity for you as well.
Definitely.
A potential one.
Yes. And I didn't know anything about the lesbian community in San Francisco or what that would have meant to make that transition.
Oh, I remember that part in the book now. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that is also part of it. I explored that world.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And discovered what my true and authentic self was. In that process.
And I think that, that process of discovering your true and authentic self is often, first of all, you need creativity to delve into that and to do that. And then you need the creativity to then kind of deal with the new situations.
Definitely, yes.
And you're going to be featured in our next episode also. We have some questions that'll be carried over. Is an episode about change. And that'll just be a question that will be kind of sneaking over into another episode. But tell us a little bit about your writing process. Were you versed in writing? Were you used to writing? Did you have to learn more about writing in addition to all the other stuff you were learning about to go through this process?
Well, for me, my experience with writing was basically college education.
Okay.
And I wasn't trained to be a writer at all, and I honestly didn't consider myself a writer or an author at all.
A lot of people don't.
Process.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a matter of just putting words on paper and trying to tell the story.
And I think that you've done that really successfully. To create a story that really does move forward and that not only helps people, but that does move as a story that can entertain people who are not even in that situation, but they can put themselves in your shoes. That's really a great talent. That's amazing. And so now, do you consider yourself an author? Do you just consider yourself somebody who told their story? Because your title is Diane's Story.
Yes.
And I find that kind of fascinating. And then also I was like, wait, Diana, I'm confused. Can you tell us about that?
Well, my name is Diana. However, my nickname has always been Diane. So, and that's used so frequently with me, I just decided I would just use Diane.
Oh, interesting.
So,
that's interesting.
And then, it's interesting also that you had
so
Jay,
much transition.
Jack. Yeah, Jay, Jack, and Jocelyn. Names are such an interesting thing, and how you kind of found names to describe who these people are that this happened to is really, really cool. So now tell us about your life after the book. How has this changed your life in terms of going and speaking to people and having this whole new platform?
Well, I find it rather fascinating. When I started with writing the book, my interest was to inform other women such as myself who might find themselves in a similar position with someone that they love, unsuspecting, without any knowledge and not knowing where to go to find the help that they need to make their decisions. So that being said, having written this story, I started to realize that it wasn't particularly the women that I was hoping to target that were coming to me and saying, thank you for writing this book. It was people within the transgender community themselves who would come by and
that's
say,
fascinating. And I'm not surprised, though, I have to say. Yeah.
Wanting to tell their loved ones.
Absolutely.
They would come to you for advice.
Yeah, it was like that. It was like, okay, how did you handle it? What did you think?
What would you want somebody to say to you in this time?
Right, and mostly all I could say was, I want you to be honest. It's really important to be honest.
Yeah.
Because in the story, you find that Jay isn't that forthcoming with me.
Right.
And doesn't present the situation with a lot of honesty along the way. And so it kept leading me down these kind of strange and unusual paths.
Which makes for a great story.
It makes for a great story, except you get mad sometimes when you read it. And
Micah got very mad.
I got fired up,
Yes,
and I was yelling at people in the book a couple times. I can be a little hot-headed, but
But that's what makes such a good story.
It does.
The
It's very
honesty,
compelling.
yeah, the honesty
Very
that you
compelling story.
have.
No,
yeah.
it's a great story.
I think that a lot of times being truly creative takes radical honesty, and I think that that's one of the themes that you're exploring in this book. And do you feel that discovering that radical honesty within yourself, do you think that that's kind of influenced your life since then?
Well, I think I've always been an honest person. I mean, I've always made that effort to be honest with people, but the transparency that it took for me to tell this story for many of the different scenes within the book, to let others know that I had these feelings or that I acted this way, that was difficult to put on paper. It was difficult to put on paper.
I could see that.
Yeah, you've done a lot of spoken word stuff as well, right? Did you start like that? I don't remember. Did you start doing the spoken word and then the book came out of that?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that process?
Well, I realized that I was having such difficulty starting the book that I had actually gone to an open mic event in Novato, California. And there I was listening to other authors read their work, and I realized that maybe this was a platform where I could start helping myself write.
Oh,
and
that's
so
brilliant.
I
like
approached the person leading the group and asked if I was to write a chapter, could I come and read it? And it was an unusual story. Part of it for me was I didn't really think that anyone was willing to hear what I had to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to put ourselves back into your shoes back in the, at that time. Because I think now it's kind of a matter of course. You're thinking, wow, why wouldn't anyone be interested? I mean, a lot of people not even in this situation. I mean, we all find things to identify with in your story. I'm surprised.
I agree with you. I mean, one of the things that I found that translated very well is that you don't need to be in any kind of transgender anything to find things about your story that are parallel with anybody having an intimate relationship.
Yes.
I mean,
and with trying to tell your truth
or tell your
that
truth,
may be.
or I feel like a lot of those things resonated with me, even though I wasn't going through that experience. They transfer over, and you do a really good job of talking about the things that go on in intimate relationships and how challenging they can be in their own right. So yeah, I mean, I felt like it was very helpful to me.
So you've told people who are in the process of transitioning and who want to tell their loved ones, you've told them about how they need to be honest and radically transparent and all of that. What would you tell women or men who were in your situation, and what would your message to them be?
Assuming that you love the person, such as I did, first of all, you need to step back and listen.
Ooh, listening.
You have to listen because when it first is blurted out, you don't always know what it means, and you certainly, if you're taken back by it or you're
it's
surprised,
easy to get reactive.
You get very reactive, and I was reactive, and at the same time, I thought to myself, we're adults. This is very important to Jay. If not, he at the time would not have put himself out there to express this to me. And one of the first things that he said was, I don't want to lose you. And I find that the transgender that comes to me and says, I'm really afraid to tell my wife or my loved one or my girlfriend or any part of my family that I want to do this, the first thing they're afraid of is that they're going to lose the people that they love the most.
Yeah.
And I think that the people who have somebody say this to them are also afraid that they're going to lose that partner very much as well. I mean, it's just such an unknown. I mean, no matter what, even if you read everything about it, I guess that those emotions that come out, you just don't know what to expect.
You don't know what to expect from society, from yourself, and I was open-minded about it in that even though I was confused and didn't understand it, I loved the person enough that I wanted to find out, what is this and what does it mean? How's it going to affect me? How's it going to affect him?
And your families and
my family, my children. And so it was all encompassing, and it wasn't something to be taken lightly. And I felt like for certain that Jay needed support, and I wanted to give that. I didn't know even how to give the support.
Right.
I didn't know what I needed to do.
Right.
I had to be so
And you
careful.
had to find that on your own.
I had to find out on my own.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is, so that's why this book is such a valuable tool, is because you did your own exploration. You went through this whole process, and some of what I think you've discovered that helped you might not help others, but a lot will. And I think that it's something that people can read this and kind of get a better idea of things that they can think of or try or consider.
Yeah, a question that I have is, and I don't know if I asked you this before, but I know that you wrote this, you know, with the premise of I want to help other people that are going through this similar situation. But did you ever think about the creative process of doing the writing? I mean, did you ever think, oh, if I do this process, it's going to help me process it and move through it and be able to be self-reflective about why I was in this relationship and how it affected me? I mean, did it help you ultimately to write the book?
I think that ultimately it helped me write the book. I think when I started the book that wasn't part of my thinking at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was, what can I do to help someone by putting this on paper?
Wow.
And
because so many people write a book from a place of catharsis or of
Right.
and I didn't
closure or
processing
whatever.
or-
Yeah. I didn't feel like I needed to process it. In fact, what I thought was interesting was I thought I had it all processed.
Oh,
wow.
interesting.
By the time I started
what
writing.
came out in that process? Like, what were some of the massive things that came out that you thought you had already put behind you while you were writing? Were there any times where you were just like, whoa, this is very overwhelming?
Well, you know, to be blunt about it, in some ways, no. But what I do find now is I do a lot of open mic work. And many times when I'm doing the open mic readings, I will surprise myself by reading a chapter. And it's not always the same chapter. It can be different chapters. And I'll start reading and I'm, you know, into it and I'm reading it. And all of a sudden, I'm just overwhelmed by emotion. And I feel the tears welling. And I realize that the audience has suddenly noticed that,
Right, but at the same time, I can't imagine they would be surprised because it is such an emotional thing. I mean, I think that, you know, when you're writing something and you're putting those emotions down, I mean, I can imagine that there's probably not a dry eye in the house with some of the scenes that you read. I mean, I can imagine that people come up to you. I mean, do people come up to you afterwards and just tell you that you've really changed their lives?
well, they'll come up and they'll say, you know, I'm so glad you wrote this because I've experienced it myself.
Wow.
Or I had one gentleman come up to me right in the beginning of my open mics and as I was starting to write the book. And I had done a chapter and he came up and he looked at me and he says, I need to talk to you. And we kind of went to the side. And then he said, I have to tell you, he said, my wife came out to me 10 years into our marriage, 2 children, that she was lesbian and she was leaving me. And he said, I didn't know what to do. And you could see the tears starting to roll down his face. Because,
of course.
again, it's one of those, it affects people. It wasn't the same type of relationship. But
it's got so many points of similarity. I mean, this is a
similarities.
very universal thing.
Well, I could see being, you know, in that situation and thinking, what did I miss along the way? What did I miss? Did I not get the memo? Did I not?
Yeah.
Was I not at the first class? Where did I?
Right.
You know, how did I not know this?
I would think that there's some guilt as well.
Someone
right?
that you're in love
Yeah.
with, you're, you know, you think, oh, I know this person, you know, and
You assume that you know people.
you
a
assume
lot,
that you
and
know people,
yeah.
and
Yes,
I also think
definitely.
that, you know, it is kind of like you kind of mourn this person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's almost like a death. You know,
you
you're
definitely go through a grief process.
yeah, you have this
Yes.
person, and now they're not that person. They yes, maybe their spirit is the same, but they're a different person.
Yeah.
Well, you realize
absolutely.
that you never really knew the person.
Yes,
You know, and I think
which is
that-
part of that. Where did I go wrong? What happened?
Yeah,
type of
I
thing.
had
Who
to-
am I?
definitely.
What can I, like, how do I trust myself to make decisions about this kind of thing in the future? I
That definitely affected me.
those are
Yeah,
the kind of questions
yeah.
I would be asking myself, because I've done that even in relationships that, you know, I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Honest to God.
Exactly. And so, how has that shaped your relationships since? Yeah.
I will definitely say I'm less trustful.
I mean, that is impossible not to be, right? I mean, I can't imagine.
I wish that I had the ability to not have the feeling about it of not trusting, but it's very difficult for me to just
Push it
trust,
aside.
To
Yeah.
push it aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So tell us a little bit, and also we're going to urge people who are watching this to watch our other episode that we're going to have about change, because Diane's going to be telling us about how she dealt with change. You're going to tell us the kind of steps that you took, like what you think is important when dealing with a huge change in your life. But before we do that, let's talk about, this is to round out this particular interview. How has your life changed since? So you've been doing a lot of open mics. Do you have any creative projects in the future? Do you want to keep helping people? What's the plan?
Well, the idea is to continue to do open mics and, of course, marketing the book. But yes, I am putting together short events that I'm writing more around the book. And some of the things that I didn't talk about before, then I will bring out at that time, or go a little deeper into some of the areas that I didn't, kind of did on the surface.
Oh, I can imagine that you could be literally leading retreats that have to do with this. I mean, I can't imagine
meeting.
that
I mean, creating programs for psychologists and people that are doing this kind of work. I mean, I think it's endless the things that you could be part of, and I definitely would love a book about, more about you. I felt like it was really about you in relationship to this process, but kind of, I think just, I could see you writing a book about how it transformed you.
Right.
And how, that
the butterfly effect.
Yeah, the butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect.
The butterflies.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be.
I mean, people, you got to read this book. It's so good.
And
it's so good.
So this book is available at Book Passage.
It is
at
this book
Compass Books.
Compass Books.
Yes,
at
congratulations for that. Yes, you guys can read and fly and be transformed.
Yeah, it's at various stores in San Francisco and also in Marin County, in Portland, Oregon, and another read-through.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah, and Nashville, Tennessee, Vanderbilt University.
Oh,
wonderful.
So it's getting out there a bit.
It is getting out there. And if anybody,
if
if you are a university professor who is doing a gender studies program, and the book would be an amazing piece.
For a class. I think it would be great for a class.
Very much so. It'd be really incredible. So we will post also where to find it. We'll post a link on Amazon, all of that. And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciated it.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Join us next time for another Creative Happy Hour.